Right, Matthew Okuhara has asked me to review his video. So because I absolutely love Matthew's channel and the research he does and all the work he does, I'm here to do it. So let's see what Matthew has got in store for us through this video.
皆さんこんにちは. My name is Matt Okuhara.
So, Matthew, handsome man. All Englishmen are handsome, just simple as that. Lives out in Japan, does the stuff.
For this video, we're going to use Anthony Cohen's book, Samurai Arms, Armour and Warfare, and we're also going to be spending some time looking around the inside of Matsumoto Gun.
Everybody always forgets Yoshie's name. she gets angry. Why is it always Anthony's book? Because I'm the face of it all. Basically, I'm very happy that Matthew has done this because these texts are extremely important. There's many texts in Japan, don't get me wrong, but not many of them have been translated. So actually, we get loads of Bushido texts and things like that, but nothing on actual proper warfare. So I'm so glad that Yoshie did this, and I'm so glad that Matthew helps me out with this type of thing.
Fortresses in Japan. There is an ongoing misconception that the samurai either disdained the use of firearms or thought that it was dishonourable, and this is simply not true, as it was the rulers of Japan, the samurai caste, that developed Hojutsu, the way of the gun, the samurai who ordered thousands of guns into production, and it was the samurai who armed themselves and their ashigaru with...
I like that Matthew said that because I'm working on the book at the minute, Book of Bushido, and he's helped me a lot with the gun section. And this is just so true, is that Japanese were manufacturing guns at a massive scale. There is some arguments, debates on how the guns came into Japan, and by that I mean how they were received. And some samurai didn't like it, but on the whole, the samurai went, guns, pff, off to Korea, let's kill everybody, we need some guns. It's absolutely like this untold story.
Too early, there's a good chance you're going to miss. You're going to give away where your firing positions are and give the enemy the opportunity to withdraw without suffering too many casualties, so they can come up with a better plan.
Now, I've been to a lot of these events in Japan, and they're so well organised that sometimes it takes the fun out of them a bit. They're wonderful to see.
Overrun. Next it says bullets used in foot soldier muskets should be 6, this says momme in weight, that should probably read monme, which is the Japanese term for caliber, and a 6 monme bullet is a 15.5 caliber, so it's the diameter of the bullet and not the weight.
Ah, the monme thing. We actually went through this, whether it's monme or monme, and it was really difficult to do because it is actually probably should be monme. But we debated it, and especially when you go back in old times, a lot of the names or the words were slightly different. They weren't quite the same as modern, and I think we just unified them all as monme. But it's a difficult one because, especially when we could go back to old documents and do hiragana and katakana, the katakana doesn't say exactly what the Japanese word says today. I don't know if this is the case with monme, it's just come up. And basically, you find that it's very difficult because Yoshi will say the katakana. I'm like, well, that sounds similar, but not really like, you know, what the word is today. And she went, yeah, but they said it a bit differently. Words evolve. Whether it evolved with monme or not, I'm not sure. But I remember we're making this decision on the double M or the NM. And it got very complicated, so we just went with one, I think, throughout.
The book then goes on to talk about Dairen full volleys and Shoren independent volley fire, so let's have a look at what those look like in practice. A full volley will put a lot of lead down very quickly and hopefully cause a lot of damage, but it also leaves the troops vulnerable as they try to reload their weapons. An independent volley, on the other hand, is a lot more sustained in duration that can be quite useful in defensive action.
See, what's good about this is basically when we do these things, we see them in paper and you have to imagine them. But actually to see them there going is wonderful. That is superb. It's really nice to see. I would love to see the movements and everything.
This method of shooting is that it's sustained in duration, it can go on for a long time, it conserves ammunition and it stops the barrels from overheating. Whilst the front rank fires, the second and third ranks, they prepare their weapons, so they're going to be loading them and checking them and making sure that once they get to the front, they are able to shoot. There is another method of firing, and that's in group volleys, firing in 3s and 4s, and that looks like this.
Yeah, what you've got to remember there as well is the fact that people, especially if they got ashigaru teppo, which maybe, and people don't like, they say ashigaru not so trained and everything. They are. It's like an infantry people, especially towards the end of the Sengoku period. The Ashigaru suddenly are a bit more militarized, a bit more structured. And I've even visited, which was an eye opener for me, was Ashigaru barracks, where they were like, yep, the men slept here. They were stayed here all year. They trained. It was like there wasn't much difference between the, obviously there's social differences, but actually they were between the samurai and the Ashigaru is what I'm trying to say. But they literally stayed there, slept there, trained there, went to war, everything. And you're like, these guys are not untrained idiots. They're really quite well done. But at the same time, you have to remember, with a mass of them, you have to be like, don't let anyone get trigger happy. We all know the shot from Lord of the Rings. Nobody wants the samurai to kick off the urukai, do we? See the samurai, bring the urukai.
Matsumoto Castle has a large firearms collection on the second floor of the castle itself. So let's head on inside and see what kind of items are in the collection.
The firearms collection is known as the Akahane collection. It's on the second floor of the Castle Museum, and as well as firing the weapons that we use in displays, it is also the responsibility of the Matsumoto Castle Gun Corps to look after these historical items, and not just the guns, but also the ancillary equipment and some of the sets of armour as well. A lot of these items date back to the feudal era of Japan, but some of them as well are a bit more modern. They come from the Boshin War era, and they come from the Imperial era of Japan as well, so it's a very thorough collection. Some of the most impressive weapons are known as Zamazutsu, which are the loophole guns, and they're fired out of firing windows like this. The castle has over 150 of them. Historically, Matsumoto Castle never came under attack. It's never been laid siege to, so that's quite fortunate, and one of the reasons it's in such good form. The Book of Samurai, however, does go into in a little bit of detail about the use of gunners in defensive positions, having your expert marksman placed at the front and weapons rotated to them, and that would be the Zamazutsu.
I love that when you get this idea. You never see this done. Is a samurai sat there who's good. Everybody's going to be different at shooting. You get the idea of a samurai sat there and somebody passing him weapons. He's like, boom, next one, boom, come on, get him on, boom, right, next. A team of people are like this, go on. And he's like sharp shooting people from the castle. We don't ever get that sort of... This is what I mean about putting the story into it. Yes, you can be like, here's the porthole, we shoot out of the porthole. But what about, it's like, where's John? He's really crack shot and we can't get this guy over there and he's causing a right load of trouble. Bring John over. So John comes over, he's like, right, Bob, Harry, Stan, Larry, start loading guns. John, start shooting that guy there, he's doing me head in. So boom, next one, boom. See, we need the stories involved, which was wonderful.
Next we'll talk about the makeup of a teppotai, which is the gunnery unit. The Book of Samurai says there should be one Yoriki attached for every 5 people. Now Yoriki is not necessarily someone from the samurai caste. He's possibly a well-trusted or well-experienced Ashigaru, and he would be the unit leader.
Right, Yoriki is a difficult one. So what Matthew's saying is that they might be below than samurai class. However, I think Yoriki changes. It's like Doshin, Yoriki. They change over time. Jizamurai. So I think in Edo period, Jizamurai are not considered proper samurai. Yoriki are not considered proper samurai. And I haven't got the full answer to this, but there's actually a decline or a movement, and there's shifts in social level. This all comes about when Hideyoshi sort of like traps the samurai in their ranking and level. What you have to remember is before Hideyoshi, the world of the samurai was different. It was different. Tax was done differently. And that's very important because the land was taxed in a different way on what should be done. Then after Hideyoshi, it's sort of taxed on what... originally it was taxed on what it could possibly do or what you got, or, it wasn't so much. But afterwards, generally, Hideyoshi did an actual, land tax. He basically did the Doomsday Book, the same as England. And he made sure people were paying what it should create and not what they were creating. And it bankrupted loads of farms and everything like that. Before him, samurai were not the only ones wearing daisho. Farmers were wearing daisho. People had swords. You could wander around with swords. It wasn't a massive problem. And then after him, the world of the samurai was different. And he went, right, this is samurai and it's not samurai. So I am still debating about Yoriki, samurai before Hideyoshi versus after Hideyoshi and where the change comes.
It would be that Yoriki's job to make sure that that teppotai, which would be about 5 or 6 people, had ammunition, had spare ramrods, karuka, which is a very important part of the firing mechanism, and he would also select targets if that was not already being managed by a samurai or more experienced gun captain. Discipline and control of the unit would also be the responsibility of the Yoriki, the gun captain. On page 144 it says, "Do not rush or get flustered before battle. Make sure that there are no blank shots by the musketeers, or premature shots from the archers. Try to sweep away the enemy before you have expended 70 or 80% of your ammunition."
Right, so it says there, make sure you got rid of them before about 70-80% of the things are gone. This is, I think, really well displayed in the film Aliens. So they've got them century guns where the aliens are coming down, and they're down to almost zero, and he's down to that, and you can see him going, oh, sugar, 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 sugar. I'm sure Matthew will put it on the screen somewhere, and they're like, no, no, no. And then finally there's something like 5 bullets left, and the aliens stop. That's exactly what's happening here. Exactly. It's like you've shot everything and the people are still coming on, still coming. It gets to 90% and you're like, and you're gunners now. So Isui Sensei, who wrote this book, talks about the wave of fear that can go through an army, and it can escalate and collide backwards. So if you've up to like 80% and the bullets are going and people are like, oh, sugar, and you've got people charging at you, suddenly your army starts backing off and inching back bit by bit, and that can turn into a rout. So what you need is like the people at the other end to stop by 80%, because you're not going to have, if the army starts doing that, what you have on the other side are people who are checking what's called hata iro. It literally means flag colour, but like I was saying about translation, you can't just have flag colour. It means the status of flags. So you get spotters on the battlefield who are like looking for flags, and if the flag is moving backwards and all of them are moving backwards, they'll make a signal and say they're starting to pull back. You know, there's a feeling. So you push forward and they'll go back even further. Whereas flags are bending forward and people are pushing forward, they'll put a signal and say, no, they're not ready to break yet, don't go for them. So you get this hata iro, these, you know, this idea of status of the army through the flags, because you got like a 2 meter sort of movement because of what you're doing in your subconscious. So actually, to have, if you got to 80% and you've started pulling backwards and then the signal went for the others to push harder, you might collapse the army.
And that would be the responsibility of the gun captain to make sure that's adhered to, and he would be answering to the samurai that's in charge of the gunnery. The teppotai would also perform normal soldiers' functions as well, whilst not in battle. In fact, most of the time they wouldn't be in battle.
Right, what jobs do? Yeah, you can't have a gunman. He's going to shoot for like 0.0000001% of his time, isn't it? So what else is he going to do? Everybody doesn't understand that construction is massively a part of samurai thinking. It's very easy to find the information on this. When Nobunaga constructed castles, he forbid people to wear their long swords. I think they were allowed short swords. They had a little cushion that went behind them, and they worked as construction people. It wasn't like above the samurai or below the samurai to do construction. They had to do it. And there's a story of Nobunaga summarily executing someone for misbehaving on the construction site. A samurai just cut his head off. It's like, don't kneel down, you're over. Don't mess about. They were very serious about construction. And this idea of in and out. So in the formations, there is a proper word for it. Hopefully Matthew will put it on the screen. If not, is in the book. Basically, when scouts go out, and this is probably omonomi or chumonomi horseback scouts, they go out, what you do is the ashigaru go out with them and protect them, because they're leaving their safety zone, the area, and what they might have is ambushes. Fusei Kamari normally are what they're called, where they basically ambush people coming out. So it's all right, the scouts are riding out and they're away from the sort of fortress, and they're a bit protected by the arch and everything, but literally after a certain amount of time there's no protection. People pop up, boom, 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 boom. So what you do is you send out units of ashigaru with them, and they go out. So you've got the fortress or the safe area here. The ashigaru go out with them, and then when they know they've cleared and they're into open space, they ride off. But on the return, gunner Ashigar, these gunners, they come in, musketeers, they come in, and as the Omonomi are coming back and signalling to come back, they come out and they protect them, branch out, check for ambushes, and then bring them back in. It isn't just they ride out the gate and that's it. So there's lots of jobs that foot soldier, especially musket foot soldiers, actually do. And as I say, I use the word musket just because it's easier for everyone to get to.
And page 153 has a great example of the kinds of activities that a soldier would be expected to undertake when not on the battlefield. Things like construction.
There's a bit there, so where the crowd have just clapped, and you see everybody bow. Look at the distance that the actual flags move just from a small bow of the head. That's what Hata Iro means, checking the status of flags. You can see what everybody's doing. Even though it's a mess of powder and dust, the flags stick out of it, and that's Hata Iro.
Samurai arms, armour and the tactics of warfare goes into some good detail about the use of gunners on the battlefield. There's plenty of correlation between this book and lots of other documents that I've read about the use of guns in Japan during the feudal era, and if you're interested in finding out more, you can go to gunsamurai.com.
Right, Gun Samurai, he always puts his website at the end. I don't know why. Nobody ever watches videos to the end. About 3% do. So get your bloody website at the beginning so everybody can see it. But I'm looking forward to going to with some more documentation to see Matthew and with questions. Usually I get told off when I go and see groups with questions. Once I went to see a sword polisher, and I had a question that was outside of his, like he'd gone outside of what he knew. And it never goes down well, these questions. But I am going to send Matthew a load of questions before I get there. And hopefully there'll be a video come out with me and Matthew in Japan answering these questions. Like the at the hip. And I'm going to get him to show me the put him on here and many other things. And we're going to try with his team, hopefully, if they will allow me, to recreate this scouting Monomi stuff going in and out and all that. So anyway, thank you very much to Gun Samurai. Matthew has been extremely helpful and supportive of my work, and I fully support Matthew. I think his channel should be doing a lot more, but in truth, most of our channels are not doing very well at the moment because, unfortunately, Samurai, Ninja and all that is a little bit not so well respected in the world anymore, and there's different reasons for that. But there you go. Thank you very much to Matthew.